The rifle hit the dirt with a dull thud, and the entire platoon erupted in laughter. Again, for the third time that morning, Private Tommy Hayes had dropped his M1 Garand during drill practice. His face burned red as he bent down to retrieve it, hands trembling with embarrassment as drill instructor Gunny Sergeant Morrison stood over him, shaking his head in disgust. "Hayes, what in the name of God are you doing? That's a weapon, Marine, not a hot potato. You planning to drop it in combat too? Gonna ask the Chinese to wait while you pick it up?" "No, Sergeant," Tommy shouted, snapping to attention, the rifle finally secure in his grip. But his hands were still shaking. They always shook during drills. Nerves, anxiety, the constant, suffocating pressure of knowing everyone was watching, waiting for him to screw up again. And he always did. Butterfingers strikes again, someone called from the formation. More laughter. The nickname had started 2 weeks into boot camp and had stuck like glue. Tommy Butterfingers Hayes, the clumsiest Marine in the entire 1st Marine Division, maybe the clumsiest Marine in the entire Corps. It wasn't that Tommy was weak or cowardly. At 20 years old, he was average height, average build, perfectly capable physically. But something about the structure, the drilling, the constant observation made him nervous. His hands would shake. His feet would tangle. He'd trip over rocks that weren't there. During marksmanship training, his scores were mediocre at best, not because he couldn't aim, but because his hands trembled too much to hold the rifle steady. On the obstacle course, he'd slip on ropes, stumble over walls, finish dead last every single time. The other Marines had started a betting pool on how long Tommy would survive once they deployed to Korea. The over-under was 3 days. Most bet the under. Listen up, ladies. Gunny Morrison bellowed that afternoon as the platoon assembled for final inspection before deployment. "You're shipping out to Korea tomorrow. This ain't training anymore. This is war. The Chinese Communist forces have pushed our boys all the way back to the Pusan perimeter. We're going in to push them back." And let me be crystal clear, he stopped directly in front of Tommy, his face inches away. "Some of you won't be coming home. And the ones who drop their rifles in combat, they'll be the first to die." Tommy swallowed hard. He could feel 40 pairs of eyes on him. Everyone knew who Gunny was talking about. That night in the barracks, as the platoon packed their gear, Corporal Jackson, the platoon's unofficial leader and Tommy's main tormentor, approached his bunk. "Hey, Butterfingers, do us all a favor when we get to Korea." "What's that?" Tommy asked quietly, folding his extra socks. "Stay in the rear with the gear. Kitchen duty. Logistics. Anything. Just don't be anywhere near the fighting. You're gonna get someone killed. Probably yourself first, but maybe one of us too when we try to save your clumsy ass." Tommy didn't respond. What could he say? Jackson was right. Tommy had seen the statistics. In combat, hesitation kills. Mistakes kill. And Tommy made more mistakes than anyone. But there was something Jackson didn't know. Something no one knew, because it had never come up in training. Tommy had a secret buried deep, discovered by accident when he was 12 years old. When things were calm, when people were watching, when there was no danger, Tommy's hands shook. His feet tangled. His mind raced with anxiety. He was clumsy, nervous, prone to dropping things and tripping over his own shadow. But when things went wrong, really wrong, life or death wrong, something changed. The nervousness vanished. The shaking stopped. His mind went cold and clear and utterly calm. At 12, he'd pulled his little sister from a frozen pond after she'd fallen through the ice. Everyone said it was a miracle. The water was freezing. The ice was breaking. Tommy should have panicked. Instead, he'd moved with perfect precision, crawled across the ice distributing his weight, grabbed her coat, pulled her out, got her to shore, started CPR, saved her life. He didn't remember being scared. He remembered being perfectly, impossibly calm. But that was one incident years ago. He'd never told anyone because it sounded ridiculous. I'm clumsy in safety, but calm in danger? Who would believe that? So he kept quiet, endured the mockery, and hoped that maybe, just maybe, if combat ever came, that 12-year-old's calm would return. November 1950. The 1st Marine Division landed at Wonsan, North Korea. The plan was simple: push north to the Yalu River, cut off Chinese supply lines, end the war by Christmas. Intelligence said Chinese involvement was minimal. A few scattered units, nothing organized, nothing to worry about. Intelligence was catastrophically wrong. By late November, the Marines had reached the Chosin Reservoir, a massive frozen lake in the mountains of North Korea. The temperature was dropping rapidly, 20 below, 30 below, eventually hitting minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Weapons froze. Vehicles wouldn't start. Coffee froze solid in cups within minutes. And then, on the night of November 27th, 120,000 Chinese troops attacked. The Marines, 30,000 strong, were completely surrounded, cut off, outnumbered 4-1. The Chinese had been hiding in the mountains for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to spring the trap. Now they were everywhere, attacking from all sides, waves of troops in white winter camouflage blending into the snow, bugles blaring, whistles shrieking, human wave assaults designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Tommy's platoon was assigned to hold Hill 1282, a strategic position overlooking the main supply route. If Hill 1282 fell, the entire Marine defensive line would collapse. The platoon dug in as best they could. The ground was frozen solid, making foxholes nearly impossible, and waited for the assault they knew was coming. All right, listen up. Corporal Jackson was organizing the defensive positions, assigning sectors. Thompson, Williams, you're on the left flank. Rodriguez, Chun, right flank. Morrison, Kim, center position. He got to Tommy last, pointing at a small rocky outcrop about 50 yards from the main defensive line. Butterfingers, you're on forward observation. That outcrop. You see Chinese coming, you radio back. Then you haul, ass back here to the main line. Think you can handle that without tripping over a rock? The platoon laughed, but it was nervous laughter now. The Chinese were out there. This was real. Tommy grabbed his gear, M1 Garand ammunition, 2 grenades, a radio, and a half-frozen canteen, and moved to the outcrop. It wasn't much, just a pile of rocks offering minimal cover, completely exposed, 50 yards forward of the safety of the main line, a position no one wanted. The spot they gave to Butterfingers because if anyone was going to die first, might as well be him. Tommy settled in, checked his rifle, hands shaking as always, and waited. The temperature was dropping. His breath came out in frozen clouds. His fingers were already going numb despite the gloves. In the distance, he could hear bugles. Chinese bugles. They were coming. At 2,230 hours, the first wave hit. They came out of the darkness like ghosts, hundreds of them. White winter uniforms, making them nearly invisible against the snow. Tommy saw them first from his forward position. A massive wave of Chinese troops, maybe 300, charging directly toward Hill 1282. He grabbed the radio, keyed it with trembling fingers. Contact. Contact front. 300 plus enemy troops, 500 yards and closing. Copy, Hayes. Get back here now. Jackson's voice crackled over the radio. Tommy started to move, to run back to the main line like he was supposed to. But something stopped him. The Chinese were too close. If he abandoned this position, they'd overrun it and have a clear approach to the main defensive line. The platoon would be flanked before they could adjust. Someone needed to slow them down. Someone needed to buy time. And suddenly, for the first time since landing in Korea, for the first time since the nervousness and mockery and constant anxiety had started, Tommy's hands stopped shaking. The nervousness vanished like smoke. The cold, crystal clarity from that frozen pond years ago came flooding back. His mind went quiet, his vision sharpened, his breathing steadied. And without consciously deciding to, Tommy raised his M1 Garand, aimed at the lead Chinese soldier, and fired. The rifle cracked. The soldier dropped. Tommy cycled the bolt, smooth, mechanical, perfect, and fired again. Another soldier down, and again, and again. 8 rounds in the M1's end block clip. 8 shots. 7 hits. The Chinese wave hesitated, confused, taking fire from a position they thought was empty. Tommy ejected the empty clip. It made that distinctive M1 ping as it flew out, slapped in a new one, and kept firing. Methodical, calm, each shot deliberate. The Chinese started directing fire at his position. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks. Tommy didn't flinch, didn't panic, just kept shooting. Breathe, aim, fire, cycle, repeat. Hayes, get back here. Jackson was screaming over the radio. Tommy ignored him. He could see what Jackson couldn't. If he left now, the Chinese would pour through this gap. He keyed the radio calmly. Negative. I can hold them. Focus on your sector. You can't hold 300 Chinese by yourself. That's suicide. Watch me. For the next hour, Tommy Hayes became something no one in the platoon had ever seen. The clumsy kid who dropped his rifle in training was now firing with mechanical precision. The nervous Marine who couldn't hit targets on the range was now dropping Chinese soldiers at 200 yards in sub-zero temperatures with frozen fingers. Every shot counted. Every movement was economical. No wasted motion. No panic. Just cold, perfect efficiency. The Chinese kept coming. Not in one massive wave anymore. Tommy had disrupted that. Now they were trying to flank him. Small groups of 5 or 6 trying to circle around the rocky outcrop. Tommy rotated positions, firing, moving, firing again. He threw one of his grenades into a group trying to rush him from a left. The explosion scattered them. Switched back to rifle fire. 2 more down. Reloading. His hands, the same hands that had trembled and shook through every drill and training, were rock steady. Even in -40 temperatures. Even with frostbite starting to set in. Even with bullets cracking past his head and mortar rounds impacting nearby. Steady. At 0100 hours, 3 hours into the battle, the Chinese pulled back. Regrouped. Tommy counted bodies in the snow illuminated by moonlight. 47 enemy soldiers down in his sector alone. He'd gone through 12 M1 clips, 96 rounds fired, 47 confirmed kills. Approximately 50% accuracy in combat conditions that would make most soldiers unable to aim at all. The radio crackled. Jackson's voice, different now. Shocked. Hayes, what the hell was that? We watched you through binoculars. You held them. Alone. Position holds, Tommy replied simply. His voice was calm. Steady. Nothing like the nervous kid from training. They'll come again. Bigger next time. Pull back to the main line. You've done enough. Negative. This position is critical. I'm staying. Tommy could hear Jackson conferring with the lieutenant. Finally, the lieutenant's voice came over the radio. Hayes, this is Lieutenant Morrison. What you just did was beyond brave. But that was 300. Intelligence says at least 2,000 more Chinese troops are massing for another assault. You cannot hold that position against 2,000. Pull back. That's an order. Tommy thought about it. Thought about the clumsy kid everyone mocked. Thought about Butterfingers. Thought about Jackson's words, stay in the rear. Don't get anyone killed. And then he thought about the 47 Chinese soldiers lying in the snow. Thought about how clear his mind was, how steady his hands were, how for the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Sir, with respect, if I pull back, they'll overrun this outcrop and flank the entire platoon. Someone needs to hold it. And right now, I'm the one who's here. So I'm staying. Silence on the radio. Then, understood, Private. Hold as long as you can. We'll support with covering fire when they come. Godspeed, son. The second wave came at 0300 hours. Not 300 this time. More like 800, maybe 1,000. A massive assault designed to overwhelm the hill through sheer numbers. Tommy watched them come, a white tide in the moonlight, and felt no fear. Just cold calculation, angles, distances, target priority. He started firing before they were in optimal range, forcing them to react, to break formation, to take cover. The Chinese returned fire, a storm of bullets impacting the rocks around him. Tommy shifted positions constantly. Fire 3 shots. Move left. Fire 4 shots. Move right. Never stay in one place. Make them guess where he was. A mortar round landed 10 feet away. The concussion threw Tommy against the rocks. His ears rang. Blood trickled from his nose. He shook his head, clearing it, and kept firing. His rifle was so cold, the metal burned his hands even through gloves. His fingers were beyond numb. He couldn't feel them anymore. But they still worked. Muscle memory took over. Load, aim, fire, repeat. The Chinese tried everything. Frontal assault, Tommy cut them down. Flanking maneuver from the left, Tommy threw his last grenade, then picked up a dropped Chinese rifle and fired that until it ran dry. Flanking from the right, Tommy emptied an entire M1 clip in 8 seconds, all headshots, creating a wall of bodies that forced the others to stop and regroup. For 5 hours, Tommy held that position alone. 5 hours in -40-degree cold. 5 hours against wave after wave of Chinese troops. His ammunition started running low. He scavenged ammo from fallen Chinese soldiers, using their weapons when his M1 ran dry. An SKS rifle, a PPSH submachine gun, whatever worked. At 0600 hours, as dawn broke over the frozen mountains, the Chinese pulled back again. This time, they didn't regroup. They retreated, withdrew. The assault on Hill 1282 was over. Tommy sat among the rocks, surrounded by empty shell casings and the bodies of enemy soldiers. He counted while waiting for his hands to stop trembling. They'd started shaking again the moment the danger passed, nervousness flooding back in. 147 Chinese soldiers. 147 confirmed kills. In one night, from one position, by one Marine. The radio crackled. "Hayes, this is Lieutenant Morrison. Status. Position holds, sir. Enemy withdrawn. I'm out of ammunition. Can you make it back to the line?" Tommy stood on frozen legs. Everything hurt. Frostbite in his fingers. His feet were blocks of ice. He was pretty sure he'd taken some shrapnel from that mortar round. But he could walk. "Yes, sir. Coming in." He stumbled back toward the main defensive line, rifle slung over his shoulder, moving like an old man. The entire platoon was standing, watching him approach. No one was laughing now. No one was smiling. They were just staring. Tommy reached the line, and Corporal Jackson stepped forward. For a long moment, he just looked at Tommy, this clumsy, nervous kid who'd been the butt of every joke for months. Then Jackson did something Tommy had never seen him do. He saluted. A crisp, formal salute, one warrior to another. "Private Hayes, you just saved this entire platoon. Hell, you saved this entire hill. I don't even know what to say." Tommy returned the salute, his hand shaking now, nervousness back in full force. "Just doing my job, Corporal. That wasn't a job. That was..." Jackson shook his head. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." The rest of the platoon gathered around. Rodriguez offered his canteen. Somehow he'd kept water from freezing. Williams gave Tommy his last chocolate bar. Chun helped him to a fighting position and wrapped him in a blanket. And every single Marine who'd mocked him, who'd laughed at Butterfingers, who'd bet he'd die in 3 days, looked at him differently now. The battle for Chosin Reservoir raged for 17 more days. The Marines fought a brutal fighting withdrawal, surrounded on all sides, temperatures dropping to 50 below zero, casualties mounting. But Hill 1282 held. Tommy's forward position became a rally point. When other positions wavered, when fear started to creep in, someone would say, "Butterfingers held against 1,000 Chinese for 5 hours. We can hold too." The nickname didn't go away, but it changed. It wasn't mockery anymore. It was respect, a badge of honor. Butterfingers held the line. Butterfingers never retreated. Butterfingers saved us all. Tommy fought through all 17 days. And something strange happened. His combat performance stayed perfect. Calm, precise, deadly. But back at camp, during rest periods, during resupply, the clumsiness came back. He'd drop his canteen, trip over tent stakes, spill his rations. The nervousness returned the moment the shooting stopped. The other Marines noticed. And instead of mocking, they started to understand. Tommy Hayes was two different people. In safety, he was clumsy. In danger, he was a warrior. Some men were born for parade grounds and drill formations. Tommy was born for the moment when everything went to hell and someone needed to stay calm. The 1st Marine Division finally broke out of the Chosin encirclement in mid-December, fighting their way back to the port of Hungnam through 78 miles of frozen hell. Of the 30,000 Marines who'd gone into the Chosin Reservoir, over 4,000 were casualties. But they took their wounded with them. They took their dead. They never left anyone behind. And they inflicted over 25,000 casualties on the Chinese forces. The Battle of Chosin Reservoir became the stuff of Marine Corps legend. The Frozen Chosin. The battle where outnumbered Marines refused to surrender, fought at temperatures that should have killed them, and turned a tactical retreat into a fighting withdrawal so ferocious the Chinese couldn't capitalize on it. And at the heart of that legend, buried in after-action reports and witness statements, was the story of Private Tommy Hayes, the forward observer who held an impossible position for 5 hours. The Marine who killed 147 enemy soldiers in one night. The soldier everyone called Butterfingers, who proved that courage doesn't look like what you expect. 3 months after Chosin, Tommy was called to division headquarters. He stood at attention in front of the commanding general, still nervous. His hands were shaking slightly, the way they always did in formal situations. The general read the citation. Private Thomas Hayes, United States Marine Corps, is hereby awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. On the night of November 27, 1950, Private Hayes single-handedly defended a critical observation post against overwhelming enemy forces, killing 147 enemy soldiers and preventing the collapse of friendly defensive positions. His actions inspired his unit and exemplified the highest traditions of the United States Marine Corps. They pinned the medal on his chest. The entire division stood at attention, and when Tommy saluted, his hand shook, because he was standing in front of thousands of Marines in a formal ceremony, and the nervousness was back. But no one laughed, because they all knew, when it mattered, when lives were on the line, those hands never shook. Tommy Hayes served 2 more years in Korea, fought in 4 more major battles, earned a Silver Star and 2 Bronze Stars, and never once, not once, did his performance in combat waver. Calm, precise, deadly, the clumsiest Marine in training, the steadiest Marine in battle. He returned home in 1953, age 23, one of the most decorated privates in Marine Corps history. He never talked about it much. Became a teacher in a small town in Ohio, raised a family, lived a quiet life. And whenever someone asked about the Medal of Honor on his wall, he'd say simply, "I did what needed doing." But in Marine Corps training facilities, his story became required reading. Instructors would tell recruits about Butterfingers, the Marine everyone thought would fail, who became one of the greatest combat soldiers the Corps had ever seen. And the lesson was clear: don't judge a warrior by how they perform in peace. Judge them by how they perform when everything goes to hell. Tommy Hayes died in 2003, age 73. His funeral was packed with Marines, some who'd served with him, others who'd only heard the stories. At the service, Corporal Jackson, now a retired Master Sergeant, age 76, gave the eulogy. Tommy Hayes was the clumsiest Marine I ever met in training. Dropped his rifle, tripped over his own feet, couldn't march in formation without stumbling. We called him Butterfingers, and we didn't mean it kindly. We thought he'd get us killed. Jackson paused, emotion thick in his voice. Then came Chosin, and Butterfingers became the only reason any of us survived. He taught me the most important lesson I ever learned. Some men are born for war, not because they want it, but because when war comes, when everyone else is panicking, they go calm. They go cold. They do what needs doing. Jackson looked at the flag-draped coffin. You were clumsy, Tommy. I'll give you that. Clumsy in peace. But in war? In war, you were perfect. The burial was at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, where America's heroes rest. The 21-gun salute echoed across the frozen winter ground, appropriate, given that Tommy's greatest moment had been in the frozen hell of Chosin. They folded the flag and presented it to his daughter. And on his headstone, below his name and rank and dates of service, they inscribed one word: Butterfingers. Not as an insult, as honor, as respect, as a reminder that heroism doesn't always look the way you expect. Sometimes it looks clumsy, sometimes it stumbles, sometimes it drops things and trips over rocks and can't hit targets on a training range. But when the moment comes, when lives hang in the balance, when someone needs to stand in the frozen dark and hold the line against impossible odds, sometimes the clumsiest warrior becomes the bravest. Tommy Butterfingers Hayes proved that in one frozen night on a Korean mountainside, against 147 enemies, with hands that never shook when it mattered most. The end. Clumsy in peace, perfect in war, Butterfingers became honor.